Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports Podcast. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. The Chiefs have wrapped up off-season workouts, and next stop is training camp in St. Joseph next month. On today's show, beat writer Jesse Newell puts a bow on the previous few weeks. We start with the ring ceremony impressions and work backwards, evaluating certain positions and the rookie class. How is wide receiver shaking out? And who is favored to line up at left tackle? Who among the draft picks came up big in the spring? Let's answer those questions with Jesse Newell. Jesse, are you ready for the shortest offseason in NFL history?
It is short, and the Chiefs make it that way because they play very deep into seasons and continue to do that. But I was actually looking at the NFL schedule with the mini camps, and I expected the Chiefs to be first because, they play the first game of the season. But actually, there were some that were even earlier than them. So I was surprised by that for the first report in veterans. But yeah, July 16th for the first date. That's very early. The All-Star game for Major League Baseball, I don't think it's ever been quite that early. The NFL season, or off-season, I should say, just continues to shrink and shrink and shrink. But for these Chiefs, what makes it amazing for them is that they continue to be so successful while every season playing like 20% more games than teams that don't make the playoffs. So at some point you think that would potentially hurt what they do, and it just hasn't. They continue to roll along.
Each of the last couple of years, I've been prepared to report a story about how the Chiefs' legs are getting heavy late in the season and how it's going to hurt them going into the playoffs. And last year should have been that year when they didn't get a bye. And they certainly rested the starters in Week 18.
Didn't get an official bye, but the Week 18 was maybe the best thing that could have happened.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the teams starting earlier than Chiefs. I think the teams that are playing in the exhibition opener, the Hall of Fame game,
makes sense. Okay,
they get to report early too, which is why I'm always praying that the Chiefs don't play in that preseason game.
Don't do that. Yeah,
right,
cheering against it.
All right, so the last time you and I saw each other was last week at the Chiefs ring ceremony at the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art, and it was a lovely affair. On the outside, we didn't get to go inside. Red carpet, players, coaches, administrative folks, spouses, guests. Anyway, Mark Donovan told me more than 400 rings were distributed that night, all of which contain an error. We'll get to that in a second. All those rings had more than 500 diamonds on it. That's one thing you can say about the Chiefs, can't you? That they nobody gets left out of the ring ceremony. It's for everybody.
Yeah, it's a big deal, a big celebration, and throughout all the things that have happened in recent years, we can talk about the NFLPA grades and Clark Hunt not being very high on those. I know Chris Jones mentioned that last week when we talked to him, but through all those sorts of, hey, are the Chiefs cutting corners here? Are they not spending up here where other teams are? This is one of those occasions where they really do spend up and make everything look nice. And like you said, you got the red carpet, you got the big Lombardi trophies out there that people are taking pictures with. And then the fact that you're getting rings to so many people that are a part of this organization, also speaks to the fact that this is something that really is celebrated. And, we see some of the Instagram videos of these guys opening these boxes and it's got a lock on it and you open it up and there's a video playing on an LED screen. So they really do sort of celebrate the victories, which it makes sense. I mean, listen, Clark Hunt's not doing bad when they win Super Bowls. There's a lot of money to be made when your team is the champ and at the top like the Chiefs are. But it is a cool event. I like seeing players and their spouses, significant others. Some of them are mothers. Some of them are brothers or sisters that come with them. See who's important to them that they bring, and they also dress really well. You can tell that people spend a lot of time and thought and effort into what they're going to do and what they're going to look like and how they're going to present themselves at this particular gathering. So it is weird. I've covered the Chiefs for just a little over 2 years now, and every year has ended with the ring ceremony. You sort of have to remind yourself that this isn't going to happen every single year, but because it is and should be such a rare thing, it is cool to see kind of how everybody celebrates it. And not only that, we wrote about this, Blair. the people that come back for it, the Mike Edwards of the world, the MVSs, the Nick Allegrettis, the guys that are having to make flights and hotel reservations and do all these sorts of things to make sure they can come back to this event. It's a big deal. It should be a big deal, but the Chiefs treat it as such. And so that's why it's kind of a cool thing to be around and to see how people react to this particular event.
I was going to say the same thing. It was a good idea you had for the story that you and I worked on together about the former Chiefs who were there, and you got to see a lot of them in the previous couple of weeks earlier at the White House visit.
Yeah,
they get to be part of that as well. But I was struck by how meaningful it was for the players you named, plus Tommy Townsend and Blake Bell, a couple others. Listen, football is a business. It can be a cruel business, a hard-nosed business. But the ones that we talked to seemed genuinely excited about being there, touched that they were there, and proud to have been part of the team that won the Super Bowl. And in most cases, they had won 2 Super Bowls with the Chiefs. These are guys that had been there for more than just a year. So in Blake Bell's case, I think he has 3 Super Bowl rings with the Chiefs. So I thought that's a pretty cool part of the ceremony to see those guys and not that they're not unapproachable when you get into a locker room or post game setting, but they all seemed eager to talk and to express their appreciation for the Chiefs afterwards.
Some interesting comments too. Mike Edwards, when I talked to him, I said, what will you remember most about last year's Super Bowl team? Because, again, he was with the Chiefs for 1 year, and he won a previous Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. So he has a unique perspective. And he just said how close guys were, the family aspect. And he said, I've already been telling the guys with the Bills, because he signed with the Bills the offseason, like, you don't understand. Like, the Chiefs last year, the team I walked into that won the Super Bowl, I mean, those guys were like family. That's what we need to create here. And Nick Allegretti spoke kind of similar words. He said, what he's trying to build in Washington with other guys that are out there since he signed his free agent contract was basically like, look, there are some people who just don't fully commit themselves to win football games. Kansas City does. And he's like, that's what I'm trying to bring. So it's an interesting perspective to hear these guys not only say, hey, what last year they had in Kansas City with the Chiefs was special, but now they want to try to replicate that somewhere else where they feel like maybe there's just that missing piece. There's something there that isn't quite there that was there with the Chiefs. And, I can be very guilty of this, talking about very raw numbers and efficiency and all these things that are going on. But I think it's very clear with the Chiefs and what they have going, it might not be a perfect organization, but this sort of aspect they have, and players wanting to play with each other, wanting to play team first, wanting to do what's best for the team. We saw it, Travis Kelce, week 18, sitting out, all those sorts of things.
And giving up a 1,000-yard season.
Giving up a 1,000-yard season to do it. All that comes together, and those players feel like it's really important, and it is part of the secret sauce that has made the Chiefs Super Bowl champs 2 years in a row. And so, the people that deserve credit for that, we can talk about Andy Reid, and we can talk about Patrick Mahomes and Steve Spagnuolo and Matt Nagy, but there is a leadership aspect to this where everyone is rowing in the same direction, and that's been the Chiefs' last 2 years, and that's something that those guys not only picked up on, but are now trying to show other teammates to say, this was the special sauce in Kansas City. It can be something good here as well.
Another neat thing about the ring ceremony was the presence of B.J. Thompson.
Yeah.
And remind us what happened with him just a week earlier.
Yeah, in a special teams meeting, as Rick Burkholder, the trainer for the Chiefs, revealed to us later, he had a seizure and then went into cardiac arrest at the team facility. And Chiefs players alerted, the training staff comes in and basically keeps him alive. And then they call out the meds or the medical department, get them in here, and he goes in the hospital. And, again, a week later, he's out. So Andy Reid said this, maybe not as eloquently as he wanted to, but it does remind me of the Damar Hamlin situation with the Bills, which is when he had his episode on the field. Somebody described it to me this way, and it makes a lot of sense. Outside of having that episode at a hospital, having it on a primetime football game or on a NFL football field is like the second most safe place you can have it in the world. And really, if you think about B.J. Thompson, this is sort of what Andy Reid said in his press conference, which is like, if you're going to have this sort of episode, I don't want to say he's fortunate to have a cardiac arrest or a seizure, but he's fortunate to have it at the Chiefs facility rather than at home. at his apartment because you just have everything there. And as you know, Blair, when we go to the Chiefs practice facility, it's connected to a medical center.
Right. You have to walk past the medical center to get into where we are at the Chiefs Center.
Absolutely. So like they have not only most important, and we can talk about the Burkholders, the Julie, Freimeyers of the world, all those people in the training department that the Chiefs talk up when it comes to treating injuries. But obviously they're all CPR trained and medically trained to be able to know in these situations what to do. Rick Burkholder said that even like the week before, the NFL requires sort of like CPR type, hey, what happens in this sort of training, and makes teams go through this, and it had been that same week. So the Chiefs knew what to do. Obviously, B.J. Thompson was in the right place to be treated immediately and have people know exactly what to do. And like you said, he was dressed to the nines a week later, out and about. We'll see about his football future, because it does make you wonder when serious things like this happen. It kind of depends on the person and exactly what went on to see how they bounce back from it, how quickly they do, if they decide to. But for one night, it was really good to see him out and about with his teammates and able to celebrate this championship just like everybody else was.
Okay, back to the rings for a second. I know that we were writing stories about the ceremony into the evening. It was a Thursday, and so when we left to go home that night, I don't think any of us knew about the typo. That became a story the next morning. A small story, but a story nevertheless. How does something like this happen? So the typo, of course, is somewhere on the ring, the playoff opponents are listed with their seed. So the Chiefs were a 3 seed in the AFC Championship last season, and that meant in their first game against the Miami Dolphins, they were aligned against the 6th seed, which was Miami. Except on the ring, it's depicted as the 7th seeded Miami Dolphins. Now, not a big deal. It really isn't. But it's a ring forever. And,
yeah.
And it's forever going to be wrong unless the Chiefs come up with 400 new rings to distribute, or it could be a collector's item, but kind of more of a little faux pas embarrassment than anything else, I suspect. Yeah,
and they are really, 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 really focused in on not releasing these things beforehand. I mean, we were talking to players and coaches the morning of, and they don't know. You know what I mean? Like, hey, have you seen it? Do you know what it looks like? I mean, everybody's really interested in. It's a cool moment. We were out writing our stories, Blair, and saw some of these Instagram lives with these players inside the ring ceremony, and they're about to be given the code to unlock their boxes, because again, they don't want anybody to be let in
it's
early.
A combination lock on these boxes.
Yeah, and I think it was. In case you steal one of these boxes, the combination was 777 for Las Vegas because of the slot machines, and that's where the Super Bowl was. But you can see the excitement. I mean, it really is like an 8-year-old on Christmas. I mean, these guys are ready to see this thing. So they go to great lengths to not leak these things. But the other side of this is, if you had like a little early release, if you had like, hey, a month before we're just going to put this out and just kind of test this to see, somebody would have found it. Now, listen, somebody here, whether it's with the Chiefs, Jostens, which is the ring company, there's some egg on the face somewhere, because you got to catch it. And we know as newspaper people, we got to copy it ourselves. And when there's an error in the story, it's our fault. Should have caught it, those sorts of things. So somebody along the line has that. But I am reminded growing up, Blair, I mean, I was a big baseball card guy growing up, and you could get the rare versions of these cards. And like you said, it made them collector's editions. There was like a Frank Thomas one growing up where like his name wasn't on it, and that was worth thousands of dollars, or the one with it. And there was another one, I think it was one of the Ripkins, where he had an inappropriate message on the
knob.
On the knob of the bat, and then they erased it later. But like the one with the F something had it on the bottom was the collector's item worth thousands of dollars. So like you said, sometimes this will just turn into something that makes it a little bit special. But not a big deal. But if you're going to spend thousands of dollars on every ring like Clark Hunt did, I'm sure in the end you would love to have it so that they are not incorrect. And like you said, not a huge thing, not a score, not a having Mahomes' jersey number wrong, and nothing like that. But still an error nonetheless, and something I'm sure that they wish they could have back.
The baseball card error from my youth, I think it wasn't youth, it was older. But the one that I remember, the earliest one I remember, was Topps put out released some cards of the San Diego Padres, except it had Washington written on the card because the Padres were talking about moving to Washington, D.C.
There it is, yep.
And a few of those got out. So, little errors are part of it help make collectors items, and so maybe this one will be. We'll see.
If you get one if you buy one in an auction with a 6 on it, you might want to turn it right back in. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. God, these things are humongous too. I mean, they might as well be paperweights. They're so big. These rings these days, but
it's a kind of an arms race now because, I mean, at some point another NFL team is going to win the Super Bowl, and then what they're going to want to do is make the ring
outring the Chiefs.
They're going to outring the Chiefs, and so now it's sort of a competition. You know what I mean? Like, and who can outring each other? And listen, to the victors go the spoils. So I'm sure Clark Hunt has bigger problems in his life if his team continues to win a Super Bowl every year and he has to outdo his ring from the previous year. It's a really good problem to have, but it might be a problem he faces here in the next few years as well.
All right, so we watched the final 3 days of off-season training, the mini camp, and it was spirited. Some impressions made. I wanted to get your thoughts on a couple of positions. It's the same ones we have talked about since the end of last season, and the ones we're going to talk about next month when we head up to St. Joe. Got to start with a wide receiver. Mm-hmm. And I've got 7 candidates here for 5 or 6 spots. Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, Justin Watson, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, Mecole Hardman. The late signee, by the way, Mecole Hardman. How is this going to shake out? What and to what extent is the Rice, the looming possible Rice suspension going to factor into what the Chiefs are going to do at that position? All the players I named, are they going to keep them all? You think, is there a surprise cut here? What's the post minicamp version of this story?
So I don't know the answer. I shouldn't know the answer at this point. Let's go over a few of those guys and let's talk mandatory minicamp impressions and what we can say about those, and then people can kind of go from there with potentially where this thing might go. Let's start. Well, Hollywood was probably the story of mandatory minicamp, and he sat out just briefly some of the OTAs with, I think Andy Reid said some sort of muscle thing, but he was back from mandatory, looked great, tracks the ball well. Patrick Mahomes singing his praises. Andy Reid keeps telling Patrick Mahomes to throw the ball deep. All systems go for Hollywood Brown to have a huge year. Now, again, he's battled injuries in the past, so that is the caveat, and that is the thing, especially with these speed guys, you always wonder about. But as of right now, I mean, if you've got the fantasy leagues coming up, this is looking really good right now. Could not look much better, honestly, for Hollywood Brown to have a really good season. Xavier Worthy sat out almost all the OTAs and mandatory minicamp with a hamstring issue. This is one of those things that they will say is precautionary in the moment, but then, a lot of times you get to week 7, week 8, week 9, and you wonder why Xavier Worthy is not out there and producing, and coaches will go back, well, he didn't participate in OTAs and mandatory minicamp when he really needed to be out there as a rookie. So it doesn't necessarily mean that his rookie year is lost or shot. I mean, that's way too dramatic. And they love his intelligence. And we see him out there all the time next to Matt Nagy during these plays. He wants to know what's going on. They're teaching him all 3 wide receiver positions, which is something they were not comfortable doing last year to Rashee Rice, for example. So they want to get him in the rotation. They want to get him out there. The only thing I'll say is he's missing valuable time on the field reps with Patrick Mahomes, and that's time that can't be made up right now. So right now I would say he's a little bit behind on that. Still big plans for him, obviously, but it'll be a matter of catch-up for him because he was not on the field with those particular drills.
All right, let me stop you right there. I don't know how you feel about this, but I think that one of the reasons Kadarius Toney had a poor year last season was because he missed almost all of training camp.
Yes. The timing was off. He came back for the first game. The timing was completely off.
And he just never caught up, and it was reflected, I think, in his performance. But I think you're so right about that, and that cannot be underestimated. Missing reps with Patrick Mahomes this time of year, I absolutely believe will have an impact on Worthy in training camp and then early into the season.
Let's go to Rashee Rice. there was one day out there, mandatory, he looked like the best receiver on the field and not close. And I think that was the day that Hollywood sat out. But he could be in line for a big year, but the question mark is the question mark with him, Blair, which is a suspension. I believe his court date is set for sometime in the late fall. But if you're the NFL, what do you do? Do you just let him play the whole season and say the court case hasn't played out yet and you want to wait till the end of that? Because we don't know that answer yet, but the fact that they continue to have him with the first team, the Chiefs are still giving him full reps. I figure if they knew something about him not playing for the first 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, or whatever, they'd probably move some of those reps to somebody else. So still kind of a situation in limbo. But I will say, when he does play, I would expect a good season from Rashee Rice because he has looked impressive during the time that he's been out there. Dustin Watson, I think it's what you get. Sky Moore talked with him earlier this offseason. He just wants progression. I see some things floated out there that he's not going to make the team. That would shock me. I don't see the Chiefs giving up on assets. And right now, he's still a second-round pick who's an asset who has been now with the offense for over 2 years. And his biggest problem early on has been injuries and just not knowing the offense as well and not gaining that Patrick Mahomes trust. So is he your number one guy? No, he's not your number one guy, but I'd be very surprised if he's not on the Chiefs roster to start next season. McCall, I think he's signed as Rashee insurance, right? He raises the floor. You talked about the question marks behind those receivers, and it seems like every training camp somebody gets hurt. You talked about Kadarius got hurt last year. You have no depth if one or two of these guys go down. So I think he is good depth. He's a good role player. People in the locker room love him. It's just a good guy to have around, and he's going to accept whatever role he has because he went out to another team in the NFL and did not like the experience. He likes the experience with the Chiefs, which brings us to Kadarius Toney. Very interesting. He sat out, or he didn't. Sat out is the wrong term. He did not show up to any of the OTAs. They are voluntary, but some are more voluntary than others, if you will. And I think we were all surprised Kadarius wasn't there because the Chiefs have continued to show faith in him and wanted to bring him back. That would have been a good, probably olive branch to reach out to say, hey, I'm committed on this, all those sorts of things. He started with the threes at receivers. Kadarius Toney did when he first got back to mandatory minicamp, which to me says that the Chiefs were sort of the same way, saying, hey, if you had showed up to OTAs and maybe got through this, you might have been up a little bit higher on this list.
And when we talk about starting with the threes, that's 3 players. So the Chiefs, when they run their first team offense out there, it's 3 wide receivers. So
yeah,
at least number 7.
Like Cornell Powell is lined up opposite him. And again, Powell's a great practice player for them. He's been around. He knows the plays, all those sorts of things. But he's not a guy that's getting playing time with the big squad right now. So I have more question marks about him than I ever have. I kind of just thought the same thing with Kadarius, which is like he's an asset. The Chiefs like to keep assets. He's obviously a talented player. The return game is going to play in more this year. Potentially he can play into that. But seeing him at the start of mandatory minicamp at the very back of the depth chart, I'm not so sure anymore. And the Chiefs might have we wondered what breaking point they would have with a player like that. Maybe they're getting closer to that than I would have previously thought. The one guy I want to mention that's not on that list is Nico Remigio, who probably outside of Hollywood Brown I thought had the best OTAs and mandatory minicamp. Just a guy who's not very loud, but he missed last year with surgery. He sat out the season. He was an undrafted free agent. Could potentially play in the return game, but he was a guy that Patrick Mahomes linked up with a lot in these routes. And I know Matt Nagy kind of went out of his way to praise Nico for coming out and just putting his head down, knowing his role, being in the right spot, all those things. Not a huge receiver, but again, we saw him break away with his speed in certain points on routes as well. So he's changed his number over to 81. 81 will be a guy to pay attention to in training camp because that is the guy, if one of these guys up top we talked about does not make the roster, Nico's the one battling for that spot and potentially could kick somebody off.
He was good for just about all of it. And in my kind of personal favorite, Phillip Brooks.
Brooks, and that's a return specialist right there.
And first and foremost is his return ability, and especially with the changing nature of the return game with kickoffs. But showed good hands, undersized but local, and Kansas State. And
so you hate to do all the Darren Sproles stuff. Right. I know he's a receiver, not a running back, but he's noticeably undersized out there, but he's also noticeably better at special teams than a lot of guys because he has sure hands and K-State drills the heck out of those guys. And I remember covering him. He made a couple huge plays against Kansas in a game that K-State really needed him to make plays. So he's dynamic back there. Again, I think if he makes it, there'll either be a couple receiver injuries and or the Chiefs fully commit to this new kickoff rule and saying they really want somebody back there who's sure-handed and could make some explosive plays. But there's a potential for that this year more than there was last year. So Phillip Brooks probably coming out here at the right time out of college and into the NFL.
Let's talk about left tackle. Two got first-team reps. I'm going to try to pronounce it. Kingsley Suamataia. Mataia. I've had months to get this right. And
all right. You're close.
I'm going to, and I think when we get to St. Joe, we'll be talking every day about Kingsley. And so it'll roll off the tongue easier then. And then, of course, Wanya Morris are the candidates. Rookie, second-round pick, and in Kingsley, and then Wanya Morris, second-year player.
Third-round pick.
Third-round pick.
Chiefs traded up for him last year.
So I think the answer to the question is the Chiefs starting left tackle for next season on the roster already. I think the answer is yes. It's going to be one of these two guys.
Yeah, and I wanted to shout out Pete Sweeney from Arrowhead Pride too. He tries to say Kingsley's name, and you can tell before every time he takes a deep breath and focuses in deep. And he's really good. He's 98% there, I think, kind of like me. But yeah, gets the Suamataia.
And let me just say, it took me a little while to get Felix Anudike-Uzomah down.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm not like Kellis Robinette, who covered him every day in college or anything. But
Kellis got mad at me. He's like, dude, just read. Look, reads like sounds. Just read it. I'm like, no. It's not as easy as it looks when you've covered him for multiple years. But we work our best to be able to do that. Obviously, as newspapers, once you get it down typing, right. you're in good shape. As long as you
spell it right.
So I agree with you, Blair. I think it's Kingsley. We have seen the Chiefs, and this was before my time on the beat. You were hanging around a little bit more, but the Chiefs side. But when the Chiefs took Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey, and there were kind of whispers like, hey, they like these guys quite a bit. They threw him out there with the starters pretty quick, and it was pretty evident from early on that they liked him and that they potentially could play right away. They don't do much offensive line, defensive line in OTAs and minicamp. It's hard to do. You're in shorts. You don't have pads on. I mean, what are you going to do, really? It's hard to read those things. What you can't read into is Kingsley had some first-team reps with the first-team guys. Now, we can caveat this a little bit. Tooney is still out with his injury. Probably back for training camp, but they had Mike Caliendo playing left guard. So there's some shuffling going on there. But if you were just secure in Wanya Morris and he's the incumbent, you would think he would get the first reps there. And instead, Kingsley was getting his fair share of being with the first team. I think they really like Kingsley. I think that they were sold on him in the draft. They traded up for him, obviously, and I think they were probably trying to trade up for him a little bit earlier than that to be able to go make this move. And I think they like his athleticism. Obviously, Andy Reid likes that he's from BYU and the mentality that he has. He's got a lot to learn, and we know from rookies there is a lot to learn out there. I've discussed this before, though. For one, Patrick Mahomes makes these guys better because he just doesn't take sacks. I mean, he is so good at avoiding sacks. So you don't need perfection over there. You need capableness. You know what I mean?
Right.
And last year, Donovan Smith, listen, he helped the Chiefs. And they had Wanya Morris in there for a while. When Wanya started to struggle, Donovan Smith came back in, gave some stability. Was Donovan Smith amazing? No. And was he a good run blocker? Absolutely not. So I think if you're the Chiefs, you sort of hold your breath a little bit. But Patrick Mahomes made Donovan Smith look pretty good or good enough. And I think the Chiefs right now, again, I think it's going to be competition. I think we'll watch it in training camp. I think we'll see where it goes. But I think if the Chiefs have their druthers, I think Kingsley's going to be the starting left tackle for them game one, and Wanya is going to be the backup on both sides to be able to give them to be able to give them some security on both of those tackle spots. And listen, if you take a third-round pick and he's your swing tackle, that's a good use of a third-round pick. Those guys in the market cost a lot too. You know what I mean? So early indications, I would say, I was not necessarily expecting Kingsley to be out there with the first unit. The fact that he says to me that the Chiefs have big plans for him if all goes well. And again, it's going to get tougher from here. So the proof's going to be in the pudding. He's got to show it here once training camp starts and the pads come on and all those things fly at him. But it sure seems at this point that the Chiefs want him to win that job. And you mentioned the option, Blair. If everything goes wrong, there's still some guys out there on the free agent wire they potentially could pick up for the vet minimum and give themselves some security. But right now, I think they would love to secure their left tackle for Patrick Mahomes for multiple years. And that would start with Kingsley getting the job this season.
Okay, let's wrap it up with a final thought about other rookies other than Xavier Worthy and Kingsley. We got we got to see all of them in action, and because of the nature of the practice where there's no contact, it's hard to really evaluate, especially defensive guys. But anybody else stand out to you, rookie wise?
Yeah, so this will be with a caveat, like Jared Wiley did.
Yes.
He's been out there, talk about getting with the guys or players for the Chiefs. He's out there with Kelsey sometimes. He's out there with the good receivers. I'm still, and I said this before, I still caution people on him being the heir apparent. You know what I mean? Like everybody wants the next Travis Kelsey. I don't think that's him unless the Chiefs going to lock something he hasn't shown before. I think he is a super tall dude with really good hands and who could be a really good red zone threat for them where you throw the ball up and he catches and he snatches it and it's a touchdown. And we know the Chiefs, there's been times where the red zone has been an issue for them because they love to throw to open guys, and it's harder to be open when there's just a cramped space. So we've seen a role for I think he'll be more than Jody Fortson, but we've seen a role for the Jody Fortson types. And last year, I think they tried to make Justin Ross that guy. Obviously, other things happened and there was inconsistency there. But I think Jared Wiley could be that type of threat for them, giving them something different from what they have. I mean, Blair, I went to this Kansas City camp that they ran, that all the receivers had, that they came out and played with the kids. And, I mean, they're one by one marching their receivers up to us, Hollywood Brown, and then Xavier Worthy, and then Sky Moore, and then McCole Hardman. I mean, maybe one was taller than me. You know what I mean? Well, I mean, I'm not a tall dude, but maybe one was taller than me, and we were looking pretty close to each other. They don't have that. I mean, they've committed to basically saying speed, speed, speed. The NFL is about speed, about getting open, about taking the top off. The Chiefs have committed themselves to speed. So Wiley can potentially fill a nice role for them, which is, okay, now you get to the red zone. Now you got to score touchdowns. You want to throw the ball. You need a big target. He can be that. Will he be more than that? Again, I have my doubts just because usually the Travis Kelsey types, they are really good at breaking tackles and they have really, really good short burst speed. And Wiley's fast, but he doesn't really have that in his profile. So we'll see what the Chiefs make of him, but that is one guy to look for. There's been some talk about Jaden Hicks, probably more of a project player for them, and we'll see where he fits in. It does make you wonder what position he lands at eventually, because the Chiefs have a decision on Justin Reed coming up.
Right?
Can Jaden Hicks be your free safety of the future? I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's what he profiled as coming out of the draft. But do you ever count out, Steve Spagnuolo? Do you ever count out what the Chiefs can do with their players? I don't know. Probably not. So the other guys, we'll see. I think Hunter Norzad, we talked about Nick Allegretti earlier. If he can be Nick Allegretti, be an interior player who can play three different positions, can be solid in those times, and then potentially down the line, if he's a better snapper than
he did that he was snapping in the 7-on-7s.
I'd say if he's a better snapper than what Creed Humphrey is, then the Chiefs have some decisions coming up on Trey Smith coming up this offseason, and Joe Thuney both. So, could you sign Creed long term, and then you have a backup plan if he doesn't snap anymore, then move him to guard, and you've got your center in place, and you got him at a pretty late draft pick? That could be something there. And the Chiefs took a lot of players, obviously, CJ Hansen too, for that interior line to potentially have some guy come out of there. Kamal Hadden, he was out there. We'll see competitiveness, but you never count out a late round cornerback with the Chiefs just because of their history with it. And if I am most confident about one thing with the Chiefs, it's that they can churn out cornerbacks and make them better. And that's why, they keep saying, there's no replacing L'Jarius Sneed, which is true, and the skill set and what he provided to them. But if there's one position I want to backfill from, it's that position. I would trust Dave Merritt. I would trust Steve Spagnuolo. Those guys have shown over time the ability to just churn out great players at that position. And so if Kamal Hadden becomes the latest, I guess I at least will not be surprised just based off the Chiefs' history.
That's why I think Dave Merritt's going to be the next coordinator off of the staff somewhere. If Spagnuolo retires after this year, Merritt becomes the Chiefs' DC. But if not, I think he goes somewhere else.
Well, I don't think Steve Spagnuolo's retiring because he keeps talking about how he's not getting head coaching opportunities. Right. So he's not going anywhere anytime soon, I don't think. But the second part of that, when you talk about Dave Merritt, it was amazing. I stand next to Sam McDowell. I think you out there at the practice facility watching one of these practices, and you look around, they have no new position coaches.
Right. We noticed that at the ring ceremony, too.
It's the same. Like, they just won the Super Bowl.
What are these guys doing here?
They won the listen, I know I works in college. If your staff, if you're the Kansas staff and you go, 9-3 out of nowhere, they take your offensive coordinator. They take your O-line coach. They take everybody. They take your
KU and K-State both have new offensive coordinators. Missouri's got a new defensive.
They take your defensive backs coach because it's like they got something going on. There's some sort of development there that's happening that we covet. It's again, it could speak to the culture of this. I'm sure someone in that building turned down a job this offseason to stay with the Chiefs because they like the situation. But it also speaks to what you're saying, Blair, which is if this run keeps going. It's amazing the continuity of this staff that the Chiefs get to benefit from, but it can't last forever because the Chiefs have too many good coaches in that building that are due for a promotion, and they're going to get it at some point here. And Dave Merritt's at the top of the list.
All right, Jesse, take a few days off, and we'll talk to you again in about a month.
Sounds good, Blair.
That'll do it for this episode. Thanks to producer Monty Davis for putting together the show, and to our SportsBeat KC staff of Randy Mason, Jeff Rosen, and Scott Chasen. Tip of the cap to Jesse Newell for sharing his insights. And thanks for listening. Let us know what you thought of the show with a rating and review. We'll be back soon on SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in and around Kansas City.